Hello again everyone from Tokyo, Japan, and welcome back to Two Wheels in Tokyo. Today's video is one which I've been meaning to do for a long time because it's about a subject which is close to my heart, or maybe I should say it's close to my backside, and that is a review of the Brooks B17 saddle. Now, in my previous reviews of this bike here, my GT carbon grade, I received one comment which said that I should change the saddle. Because I was running a Brooks saddle on the bike, and of course I followed the advice from that commenter and I changed the saddle. And what I did is I got rid of that old worn out black Brooks B17 and I put on this nicer tan Brooks B17, which I think makes this bike look 1000% more cool. And even if it doesn't make the bicycle look more cool, it makes the bicycle much more comfortable. Of course, this is quite a modern bicycle. This is a 2024 GT grade carbon with all the latest stuff which I could fit to it. It's got a Shimano GRX 1x12 driveline, kind of mix of XTR GRX and other parts to it. Pretty much the best stuff I can find. It's still a work in progress. I'm going to be replacing the fork next week with a new Rudy fork. Lots of, I guess, newer high-end parts on this bicycle, with the exception of the saddle, which is this really old school Brooks B17. Now, I've been cycling for a long time. I started using Brooks saddles about 10 or 12 years ago, I guess about 12 years ago. But I've been cycling since Ronald Reagan was president of the United States, which was quite a long time ago. In those days, I was a really serious cyclist. I did a lot of long tours. I competed in local racing events and things like that. And in those days I ran the same saddle which everyone else used, which was basically the Cell Italia or Cell San Marco saddles, along with a good pair of padded cycling shorts. And yeah, I loved riding. The bikes were comfortable. I didn't have any issues with the seating or comfort, at least none that I noticed back then. And when you're young, you tend to shrug off the discomforts and annoyances which become amplified as you grow older. But in time, I eventually found myself getting a Brooks saddle. When I was younger, I kind of scoffed at Brooks. I always thought that it was a saddle for old people and cycle tourists and things like that, or just people who had really old bikes, and that was the original saddle which came on them. And it wasn't until a long time that I actually got one. And after putting it on my bike and breaking it in and using it, I was hooked. And since then, Brooks is the only saddle I use. Now, that bike was my Brompton. I got a Brompton to commute back and forth here in Tokyo after the 2011 earthquake, and it was a good way to get around. After the earthquake, the railways and subways here weren't very dependable because of the rolling blackouts, so I might go to work and then, on the train, then have to find a way to get home some other way, so I would just fold up my Brompton, carry it on the train with me, go to work, and if the train wasn't running, I could ride it home, or vice versa. And when I got the Brompton, the bike shop recommended a saddle, and the only saddle which really looked good on it was one of the Brooks B17s, which they had in the same display case as the Brompton accessories. So I bought one and I put it on the bike. At first I wasn't impressed. It was very hard and uncomfortable, but as the weeks rolled by, it began to become more and more comfortable, and eventually I fell in love with it. And from that point on, I've continued to use Brooks on all of my bikes. I've got, what do I got now? I think 5 bikes and 5 different Brooks saddles. So that gives you an idea of what a saddle fan I have. I'm a big Brooks fanboy, and and not because, for any other reason other than that they are comfortable and I can spend a lot of hours riding on these. So this bike here and my previous bike which wore this saddle, I've taken on many a 6 or 7 hour ride in complete comfort, and that's despite the fact that I don't wear cycling shorts. I just wear ordinary shorts and ordinary underwear, or sometimes I wear jeans when the weather is cooler outside, and I have no issues with saddle soreness or comfort or anything like that. No pain at all. And of all the Brooks saddles I've tried a few different ones. I've tried the Swift, I've tried the Professional, and a few other variations, including an Ideal leather saddle. But to me, the Brooks B17 just seems the best all-purpose, all-around saddle. It's the one that is the most likely to fit most people. It's easily available. If your bike shop sells Brooks saddles, they'll probably have a Brooks B17 in stock. They're everywhere, even in Japan. They're easy to get, and it's because they're such a wonderfully comfortable saddle. When it comes to the Brooks B17, there are a few different variations. They typically come in two colors. You can choose black or tan. There's the standard model, which looks just like this one, except it has smaller steel rivets. Then there's the special, which looks identical to this one with the large hand-beaten copper rivets, but the rails underneath are copper plated to give it kind of a nice coppery look. Unfortunately, the copper plating doesn't last very long. After a year or so, it disappears and it just becomes like kind of a grungy metal looking color. And then there's the titanium version, which looks just like this, but has titanium rails on the bottom. And that costs twice as much for a slight savings in weight. If you're going to be a weight weenie with a Brooks saddle, that's probably the only option you have. That's the only one which is reasonably light, and it's certainly no lightweight with the thick leather on it. And then last but not least is this particular model here, and this is the Brooks Select, which is a special edition of the Brooks saddle. And as you can see on the bottom, the rails are painted a kind of crinkle black finish. And that kind of differentiates it from the other ones, at least the obvious thing which makes it different. The less obvious thing which makes this saddle different is the leather. Now the Select comes with a thicker leather shell on it, and it's supposedly organic leather, which means I'm not sure what the difference is between organic and non-organic leather. It looks and smells the same to me. But Brooks thinks it's special, and I kind of trust Brooks to make a good product, so I'll take their word for it. But it is thicker, and because it's thicker, it takes longer to break in. Now, I got this saddle new back in February or so, and the first couple of months, I'll admit it was very hard and very uncomfortable. And into my third month on this saddle, it finally started to change its shape a little bit. And as time has gone by, it's just gotten more and more comfortable. And when I got my new bike here, I was debating on getting another new Brooks saddle for it. But I decided to use this one because these are, the other B17s are kind of easy to find, but the Select is a little bit more rare, especially here in Japan. So I swapped this Brooks on from my All City Space Horse onto my GT here and put the black one that was on this onto my Space Horse. So this is the official saddle of this bicycle now, and I hope that it will give me a few years of service. I typically get about 6 or 7 years of wear out of a Brooks saddle. Now the prices on these saddles, they're not cheap, but one way to look at it is if you have one of these things which is broken in, you don't really have to bother with cycling shorts. And the way things go, a good pair of cycling shorts usually costs more than a good saddle. So I used to pay, say, $80 or $90 for, say, a specialized body geometry saddle, and then maybe $110 or $120 for a pair of Assos Pros Line shorts. And that saddle and those shorts were less comfortable than just running this plain Jane Brooks saddle all by itself. Basic B17 now, depending on where you live, like in America, I believe it's about $170, and the special will go for around $200. Here in Japan, about 20,000 yen for a standard B17, 24,000 yen for a special. The titanium versions run about 40,000 yen, maybe $300 in America. And then the Select ones here, I have no idea. I think I paid 20,000 yen for this because the shop had a special deal on it. And I put it on, and I love it. When I got on the bike the other day to take it out for a ride, and I sat down, I just loved the way it felt when I sat down on this bike. This is the most comfortable saddle of all the ones which I have on any of my bikes right now. I just love it. Now maybe this seems like kind of strange to waste this much time making a review video for a saddle, but I think it's worth it, and I would really recommend, if you haven't tried it before, to give Brooks a try. Put one on your bike and see how you like it. If you're the typical lycra spandex wearing type of cyclist, the typical roadie nowadays, you're probably going to want something which is more I guess more stylish, fits in more with the current fashion of carbon fiber and and all of that, and not with the stuff which looks like it would be more at home on a steel bike. But as you can see, it doesn't look so bad on here, and when you're sitting on the bike you can't really see the saddle anyway, but at least you are comfortable. Keep in mind that no saddle is 100% comfortable. All saddles are going to provide at least a little bit of discomfort, but it varies a lot from saddle to saddle. This is the most comfortable one which I've tried. A lot of people complain about numbness or things like that, or soreness. When you're breaking in the saddle, you're not just breaking in the saddle, you're breaking in your backside. So keep in mind that not only does it take time to break in a saddle, it takes time to get your backside used to sitting on a saddle. And whenever you get on a bike for the first time and you ride it for an hour or two, you're going to be sore afterwards. And if you keep riding, you ride it every other day for a few days, eventually that soreness goes away. And once that soreness goes away, then you can begin to judge the comfort level of a saddle. And you can usually tell this by issues with numbness or things like that. And a lot of those issues can be cured by simply adjusting the saddle. You can move the saddle forward or backward. You can tip the nose up a little bit or tip the nose down a little bit. It takes a little while and a little bit of trial and error to get it just right. When it comes to numbness, the one thing you should be doing when you're riding a bicycle, no matter how long you've been riding or how well broken in your seat is or what shorts you were wearing, from time to time, just stand up a little bit on the pedals and take your weight off the saddle, let the blood circulate. Do this for, like I do it every couple, 3 or 4 minutes, just for a moment, so I can feel the circulation going through, and then I'll sit back down and start riding again. This makes a big difference to how comfortable your ride is going to be in the long run. If you're coasting down hills or things like that, it's always a good idea to take your weight off the saddle. Especially if it's a really long ride, the more breaks you can give your backside, the more comfortable you're going to be in the really long run, and your ride will be much more pleasant. This saddle here, I hope to be using this on the Tour Divide next year, and so far everything is still a go for that ride. Things can change between now and then, but at the moment this bike will be going, and hopefully this saddle on it, and hopefully me on top of this saddle and this bike. I've heard of bikes not ending up there and the riders coming to pick up their bike and the airline loses it or something like that. Hopefully that won't happen in my case, and this will arrive and I can use it. But yeah, at the moment this is the bike, this is the saddle, and I don't think I could choose a better saddle for that event than this here. So that event, of course, is more than 7 hours per day. It's probably 10 or 12, sometimes more hours per day, but I don't think I would trust doing that many hours on any other saddle than a Brooks. But anyway, that's it for this video. Kind of, as I said before, a long video for reviewing a saddle. The bike is still a work in progress, and as I said, I've got a new fork for this. The RockShox Rudy fork has arrived. I got the one with the 40 millimeters of travel, and I'll be putting that on tomorrow or the day after, depending on when I have enough time. And once it's put on, I'll go ahead and make a video of the bike, and maybe I'll ride it around here through the park here. This isn't exactly a deep forest or anything like that. This is Yoyogi Park in the middle of Tokyo, but there's a nice off-road running course on which there aren't many runners, and sometimes I take a mountain bike over this course, and I'll probably take this bike over the same one once I get the fork mounted on it, just to see how well it does. And so far it looks promising, but I'll keep you updated, and I'll post that video once it's done. Anyway, thank you very much for watching, and I hope you tune in again soon.